Can you imagine a flying insect with the wingspan of a small falcon? Way back in time, this was a thing. If you want to see giant insects, you would need a time machine and set the clock back about 300 million years to the Carboniferous period. That was trippy. Here's a graphic to give you an idea of where the Carboniferous period falls in the geological timeline. The Carboniferous period is sometimes called the Age of Amphibians. During this period, there was a significant increase in the diversity and the size of amphibians. The climate was hot, wet and humid, and the landscape was pretty swampy. It was also a time when insects dominated the skies. They had no competition, and some of them were huge. The most well-known of these were the giant dragonfly-like insects, the now extinct Meganeura, which are popularly known as griffin flies. Here is a complete skeleton of one species, Meganeura monyi. It has a wingspan of about 68 centimetres. Another species, Meganeuropsis permiana, was even bigger. It was thought to have a wingspan of about 71 centimetres. These huge insects were predators, and the insects they fed on were pretty big as well. We've got the fossil evidence. Firstly, let's look at the Paleodyctioptera, a now extinct group of plant-feeding insects. They had elongated beak-like piercing mouthparts. In other words, they were sapsuckers. Some species were huge, with a wingspan up to 55 centimetres, half a metre. Paleodyctioptera are known as six-winged insects because they have a pair of wings on each of their thoracic segments. The first pair were winglets and the other two pairs were flight wings. As you can see, these insects also had a pair of long tail-like cerci. If you like this video so far, why not give it a thumbs up? Thanks. Then there were cricket-like insects, the Protorthopterans, an extinct order of insects that appeared in the middle of the Carboniferous period. They are related to the modern orthopteran insects, such as crickets, grasshoppers and katydids and so forth, but they lacked those jumping hind legs that we are so familiar with, particularly with grasshoppers and crickets. Some of these insects were also very large, with wingspans up to 30 centimetres. Why were these insects so big? No one knows for sure, but there are a few theories. The most commonly talked about theory has to do with oxygen levels in the atmosphere. During the Carboniferous period, oxygen levels were at 35% of the atmosphere compared to about 21% today. The theory suggests that the higher oxygen levels allowed giant insects to get sufficient oxygen through the tiny tubes of their tracheal system to fuel all their body parts and internal organs. The tracheal system is explained in Bug Basics number 4. Other scientists dispute the higher oxygen theory and point out that some of the large cricket-like insects that I mentioned earlier were still around at the end of the Permian period. That's that little block in red down there. There are several opposing theories, one of which suggests that the larvae of griffin flies and the nymphs of Paleodyctioptera had very little competition, so that they could take on board lots of food as they pleased and grew larger gradually over time. Basically, no one knows for sure. I'll put some links in the description below if you would like to follow the arguments. Most of the insects I mentioned are now extinct. What happened to them? About 250 million years ago, towards the end of the Permian period, there was the greatest mass extinction the Earth has ever seen. It is known as the Great Dying. Entire orders of insects and other animals and plants were wiped out. But some insects survived. Mayflies, for example, are among the oldest surviving insects. They have been on Earth pretty much unchanged for about 330 million years. If you are lucky enough to find a mayfly, you are seeing a relic from another time where giant insects dominated the skies. If you want to see what Hollywood did with giant insects, check this video out up here. And thanks for watching.